the process. Paul, do you want to stick with the process?
Yeah, let's do that. I'm very interested. I mean, before we go to Victoria, who's going to have an absolutely brilliant opinion on this, let's hear from Bob Weiner to see what Bob has to say, because I do love you, Bob, but you've normally say something that's...
opinion of Victoria.
I can't wait to hear what Bob's got to say about this.
Point. Even the women had the major protest a day after Trump's first inauguration. They knew enough to wait the day. And that's what my memory serves me on that. And I think it's completely out of taste and a real outrage that they would do it on the day of October 7th. So I totally agree with you on that.
Oh, thank you, Bob.
Yeah, I mean, again, you know, I think it's totally tone deaf that they have these protests there. But, you know, again, I think like many of the people like yourself, like Michael Schellenberger, who we heard from earlier, the issue with the crackdown is that, you know, I think everybody here wants to see free speech. We want to see a return to civil debate, civil discussion, much like Bob and I are participating in here tonight on the show. Despite our disagreements, you know, we want to have disagreements. We want to be civil. But, you know, I think at these protests, we can't really have that open debate. And I really don't see too much of the other side having peaceful demonstrations. And so I think when one side is peaceful and the other side is raging through the streets or raging on campuses, it does make you want to listen to the peaceful side a lot more than the part that's angry.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, well said. Paul, I'm not sure if you're aware of this story, but Boris Johnson, it's breaking tonight in the papers tomorrow. Boris Johnson said that he went, quote, too far and too fast on net zero when he was Prime Minister and was carried away by the notion that renewable energy sources could replace fossil fuels. Do you believe him? And also, is he making a comeback?
I think he'd like to make a comeback. I don't know if that will do the Tories any good whatsoever, because I think that horse is well and truly bolted. I also believe that he did go too far. My understanding, if Dominic Cummings is right, is that he listened far too much to Carey, i.e. he got carried away. And as a result, we ended up pushing this ridiculous arbitrary date of 2030 or 2050 or whatever it was. We're all galloping towards that, spending money we don't have to deliver something that's going to make absolutely zero difference or 0.01% difference to the overall carbon output on planet Earth. It's not the thing to do. I don't think our economy within the UK can afford to do it. I'm pretty sure the US feel the same way too. I'm not saying that we chuck the baby out with the bathwater here. We need a smorgasbord of energy solutions available to us all. And we also need energy sovereignty. They've got energy sovereignty in the US. We don't have energy sovereignty in the UK. We could do. We don't. In fact, we're inadvertently funding Russia's invasion of the Ukraine by buying energy from the French, who are buying it from the Russians. So we are both fighting an invasion, a war in Ukraine that we are funding at the same time.
Yeah, such a good point. But of course, this side of the ponds, they drill, baby, drill.
Drill, baby, drill.
Texas, there's fracking going on all over the place. Bob, are you a supporter of fracking? What's the consensus in America on fracking?
Fracking has helped us to become energy independent, and it's sort of a compromise that has been made, and I think it's a good one, as long as you make sure that you're not putting it in so deep and so poorly that it causes earthquakes. You have to check the environmental impact, but fracking is really a remarkable achievement that has helped us to achieve energy independence. So I'm for it.
And just before I go to Victoria, you mentioned you compared Boris Johnson's, I mean, is he making a comeback? I don't know, but the mooted comeback to Nixon. Just explain what happened to Nixon.
Well, Nixon, you couldn't have him to kick around anymore, and then a few years later, there he was. He's president of the United States. He lost for governor, then he wins for president of the United States. So I'm shocked. But you raised Kamala Harris earlier. She wants to do the same thing. I didn't think she was going to be able to make a comeback. Perhaps she will.
Victoria, could you see Boris Johnson making a comeback and indeed maybe doing a Nixon and becoming Prime Minister one day?
You know, I don't think that's the way that the UK is going. I don't know if the Conservative Party would nominate him as their leader again. But again, I don't really see that happening in the future. But that all of the above energy approach is definitely what we're seeing the U.S. government under President Trump embracing. One thing that I noticed was quite notable earlier in his term, he elevated his energy secretary to a cabinet level position. This hasn't traditionally been a cabinet level position, which I think really underscores the value that the Trump administration puts on energy as it's tied to national security. And I think that really goes along with what Paul was just talking about. Energy, buying energy, and who you're buying it from really does matter in the global context. And so, the Trump administration, I think, is putting pressure on the likes of, I believe it was India just a couple weeks ago, because they're doing very much of the same. They're buying this oil from allies that are, or from countries, that are not allies. They're adversaries of both the U.S. and the U.K., particularly when it comes to the Russia-Ukraine war.
Yeah.
But we can't have our head in the sands either. We can't have people claiming that windmills are deadly and are killing birds at a rate that's outrageous. I mean, that's it gets a little silly.
But just an eyesore as far as I'm concerned. Paul, Mike E on Your Say has said, what rubbish. We all need to do our bit to save the planet so we can pass on a cleaner planet onto the next generations. How hypocritical.
Well, Mike is on E, I think. We're past that point. we are past that point. Now, Mike, I understand. I'm going to talk directly to you now, Mike. Thank you for contributing. We welcome all views here on GB News. But I'm afraid, mate, that we cannot afford to do it. Energy has to be sustainable. The economy has to be sustainable. We still have to be able to afford to run our economy and look after our people. And we can't do that if we abandon the complete mission and go complete woo-woo and just wind and nothing else, solar and nothing else. And we do need sovereignty. We are on the verge of World War III. Following the Russian invasion in Ukraine, following what's going on in the Middle East, we need to be able to stand on our own 2 feet, and we cannot do that if we go down this route.
Paul, you are a man of the people. Hang tight, because I want to show you, the panel, the viewers and the listeners. I mean, the listeners will have to just guess what they're listening to. But I want to show you China's tallest ever bridge. Take a look. Sight to behold. So, Paul, the bridge is twice the height of the Eiffel Tower. It cuts a 2-hour commute to 2 minutes. Also has a coffee shop, a glass elevator, and will serve as a base for bungee jumping as well, and paragliding, rather you than me. It only took them 3.5 years to build as well, which is the main point. 3.5 years. Can you imagine how long it would take us to build that in the UK? I mean, talking of Pompey and Southampton, Paul, I remember the 50-mile-an-hour zones. The construction down was at the M20, not the 23, whatever the motorway is. It
27.
was there for 8 years.
Still there to this day. On the M27, it's still there. It's supposed to be completed about 10 years ago. It's still going to be completed next year. I don't want to criticise Highway England because I use the highways quite a lot, but that is terrible. We wouldn't. I mean, I can't imagine what policy and bureaucracy they must bypass in order to do that. We certainly don't have the systems within this country. I don't know whether the same would apply in the States. I'd imagine it does. But we simply wouldn't be able to bypass any of the local council policies, any of the local council health and safety rulings, anything to achieve that. We don't have the contractors to achieve that. We would get caught up in all sorts of red tape. It just wouldn't happen in this country. I mean, fair play to China. By the way, whether we like it or not, they're our political enemies, and they are light years ahead of us in terms of achieving and delivering things. If we are ever on a war footing with that country, all of us are in a bit of trouble, I think.
Yeah, they just get things done, which I argue that's what President Trump's doing now. He's just getting things done. Right, I'm going to bring in the panel again after this moment from Kamala Harris today, of course, the former presidential candidate from the Democrats. She took over from Joe Biden. Anyway, she's back and she's causing a bit of a stir. Take a look.
It was the tightest, closest presidential election in the 21st century. He does not have a mandate. That is not a mandate. That is not a mandate.
OK, Bob Wiener, she was saying it was the tightest, closest election. I mean, last time I checked, I think he won the popular vote and stormed the Electoral College, no? I mean, what's wrong with her?
By 1.5 points. So she's got a point, but she's not correct that he didn't have an enormous electoral vote victory.
Hang on, what's her point? Just explain, 'cause I'm lost.
Her point is that the Congress is almost evenly divided, the Senate and the House are almost evenly divided, and that the country is pretty much evenly divided.
Do you reckon it was the tightest? I mean, it wasn't the tightest, closest election. The tightest, closest election was what? Bush and Al Gore.
Yeah, Bush.
What was that? 200 votes? That's a tight election.
Right.
Not getting wiped out in all the swing states and then losing the popular vote as well.
Right.
So is she wrong, do you think?
Yeah, I think she can't say it's the closest ever, but it was only 1.5 points.
She likes to drink, doesn't she, Kamala?
You know, I'll never make it in her good list if I say what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say what I said off camera anyway. She talks nasal, and she's not a great speaker, and that was one of her serious problems.
I know someone else like that, Keir Starmer. Victoria, what's your take on Kamala? What's she doing? Is she trying to make a big comeback?
Well, I think there's absolutely nobody in the Democrat Party that wants to listen to Kamala Harris. Bob might have a little bit better finger on the pulse of the Democrat Party, but at least from my perspective, I don't think anybody wants her. They're all looking to see who their next leader is. You know, the Republicans have been hitting the Democrats this week on, you know, the pressure that they're facing, particularly from the younger, more progressive wing of the party. You know, they're saying that Chuck Schumer, who's the Democrat Senate Minority Leader right now, part of his reasoning for having the government shut down is because he doesn't want a primary from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in his home state of New York. And so, you know, behind the scenes, you have people like that who are definitely, I think, pulling the strings in the Democrat Party. And, you know, again, I just want to say, I covered the swing states last year for the election. I traveled to a number of them, and I went to dozens, if not several dozen, rallies with Trump and Vance all across these swing states and communities. And, you know, one of their consistent messages that they had during all of those events was this idea of too big to rig, that they wanted to go ahead and win every single swing state, that there was absolutely no doubt on election day, and that the election was decided pretty early on election day, that there was no doubt that the Republicans were victorious. And, you know, their ideas were really prophecy. That's exactly what happened on election day.
Yeah, Kamala saying that Trump has no mandate. I mean, again, I think she's been on the source. Anyway, let's move on. Paul, on Wednesday, Labour will table a motion at Tower Hamlets Council. Americans on the panel. This is a constituency in London, a borough in London, where the Pink Ladies and Raise the Colours campaign are going to be labelled as far right very quickly. Paul, what's your take on that?
Well, that's utterly ridiculous, isn't it? You can't. I mean, these are mums at the end of the day, worried mums. And if we're going to start labelling mums as far right, then it's the end of civilization. The highest position in our society is that of mother, as far as I'm concerned. And these people should be heard and listened to. I don't understand where Tower Hamlets have come from unless they're ideologically opposed to mothers.
Yeah, bizarre. I mean, just bizarre. I mean, Tower Hamlets, I could spend a whole 2 hours talking about Tower Hamlets and the corruption that goes on there, but we'll save it for another night. Paul, thanks for your company, mate. I really appreciate you staying up late and entertaining me and the viewers and giving you a great analysis. Thank you. We'll speak soon.
Cheers, Ben.
Let's stick on the story of the Pink Ladies and the Raise the Colours campaign. So as I said, Tower Hamlets will table a motion, it's Labour specifically, Labour on Tower Hamlets Council, who run the council, labelling the Pink Ladies and the Raise the Colours campaign as far right. And whilst the motion acknowledges that local residents have valid concerns for their safety, they say that the concern has escalated into far right narratives under the banner of keeping women and children safe, and absolutely shocking. And just as you thought it couldn't get any worse, they also say the national campaign to fly the St George's Cross and Union flags is led by far-right extremists. Well, let's get the take of political commentator Lee Cohen now. Lee, is it far-right, is it extreme to fly your national flag? I mean, what a stupid question.
Well, thanks so much for having me on, Ben. This is outrageous and appalling. These are just ordinary women, mothers, grandmothers, teachers worried about their daughters' safety amid unchecked migrant hotels in their neighborhoods. I mean, what kind of twisted logic brands this as hate from across the pond, Ben? This looks like a full-scale assault on free speech and patriotism in the UK. In America, we'd call flying your national flag a basic right, not some far-right plot. Tower Hamlets labeling the Raise the Colours campaign as extremist? That's not governance. That's cultural suicide, punishing proud Brits for loving their country while ignoring real community fears.
Yeah, well, your president said it, didn't he, at the UN? He said your countries are going to hell, and this is exactly what he was talking about. You have a borough in London, which, by the way, is majority Muslim. I think white Brits in London now are a minority. They are 36%. That's what he means. Your country's going to hell. And when that happens, you get Labour councillors calling parents, mothers who are concerned about the safety of their children, far-right extremists. It makes me sick. Lee, just finally, before I let you go, Tony Blair has been named as the member of the Gaza Board of Peace. I mean, the papers yesterday were calling him Tony of Arabia. Your take? 30 seconds.
Well, Blair didn't just fail Britain, he fractured it. Tony Blair wrecked Britain and destabilized the Middle East. He doesn't belong anywhere near Gaza, Ben, unless we want more chaos. Donald Trump, love him or hate him, delivers results. He makes peace. Blair makes promises and piles of money.
Okay. Lee, thank you for your company. We'll catch up soon. Sweet dreams. Just some your says very quickly. Pamela, good evening. You've said, hi Ben, thank you for an entertaining programme tonight with great guests and debates. The USA's gain with you and Bev at the helm is London, UK's best export. Keep going and being fearless and safe. Thank you. Really appreciate your kind words, Pamela. And Regala, you've said far right. No, just right so far. And Jeff, you said we, the general public, cannot afford to have fracking. It would help save our economy. Sorry, cannot afford not to have fracking. Bob, thank you very much. Victoria, thank you very much. Thank you at home for your company tonight. I'll see you again next week on the Let's Show Live. Sweet dreams.